The government has also accepted a recommendation on dual citizenship. A citizen of Ghana by birth who holds the citizenship of another country will no longer be barred from contesting for election to parliament only on account of his or her dual citizenship, and will not be required to renounce the other citizenship. The current disqualification sits uneasily with our engagement with the diaspora and with the realities of modern citizenship. In line with this proposal, it is also the case that multiple citizenship will no longer disqualify a person from becoming, from holding certain, offices, except that of a president and vice president of the republic. So the fact that you have multiple citizenship will not bar you from becoming Chief Justice of the Republic or becoming the head of the Electoral Commission or, for instance.
All right, so there you heard the voice of the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Dr. Dominic Ayine, of course, outlining the government's position on key constitutional review committee recommendations. If you recall, some months back, yes, the committee handed over their findings to the president, and of course, yesterday, the Attorney General used that opportunity to brief the nation on some of the key highlights from the committee's report. And indeed, this morning, it's our responsibility to expand the conversation, delve deeper into some of the key recommendations that were made mentioned, if indeed that inure to Ghana's democracy that we are enjoying over the years. It has also raised some concerns. Some people have asked pertinent questions, but my guests will definitely delve into that and find solutions to all of that. But it all boils down to the 1992 Constitution as they take a look at it, or a review, a reshaping of the 1992 Constitution. Now, if you recall, also quite a number of things were said, and this was done in collaboration with the citizens of the Republic of Ghana. Indeed, this morning, as I mentioned, we look into the white paper as it was presented by the Attorney General. Hopefully, my guest will be ready very soon for us to delve into that as well. But let me just throw more highlight on what we have picked from yesterday's encounter from the Attorney General. One of the key highlights that we penned down says that extending the presidential term from 4 years to 5 years. And now, what does this simply mean? It says that with the tenure of Parliament also increased to 5 years, the government said the current 4-year cycle leaves behind, or leaves limited time for effective governance due to lengthy transition periods and election preparations. Now, the proposed change will also apply to future presidents, not this current president. So it probably happens after the 2028 elections. What else have we gathered? It says, or the white paper indicates, that this will also reduce the minimum age to contest the presidency from 40 to 35 years. So instead of the 30 years proposed by the committee, to broaden participation while maintaining a level of maturity for the office. So that has also been changed from 40 years to 35 years. Initially, the committee proposed a 30-year cap, but that has also been changed to 35. We also gathered that the holding presidential elections during the first week of November has been captured in the white paper as well. So indeed, a date to be determined later by the Electoral Commission, which will provide the electoral calendar and also allow sufficient transition before presidential inauguration on January 7. You remember that also came up in some conversations some years or some months back as well. I think even prior to the 2024 elections, that came up. People thought that it was going to be held in November and not December, but that has been accepted or adopted. Indeed, in the hopefully in the next elections we get to see that as well. Then also there was a mention of setting timelines for presidential election petitions. You recall in 2012 how long it took Ghana to finally settle now on that election dispute that we saw. Well, the Constitutional Review Committee came up with a finding on that, and then they issued a white paper. Now they say that this requiring petitions to be filed within 14 days. So they have given some stipulated time to dealing with some of these electoral issues or challenges that come up every year that we have our elections. So they say that within 14 days after the declaration of results, and also determined by the Supreme Court within 30 days. So in about 1 month, we should find a solution to any election or electoral dispute that will come out from the various elections that we'll have. And it's also stated that the Electoral Commission will also be required to disclose all relevant election data to the court under the parties involved. One other thing we have also picked is that removing tax exemptions for sitting presidents, as it stands now, they have some exemptions, but the committee brought out this in their white paper, and it simply means that it requires the president to pay taxes on salaries, allowances, and applicable indirect taxes, although retirement, gratuity, and pension will remain exempt. So, of course, there will be that requirement from the president to pay taxes on their salaries, the allowances that they take, and also applicable indirect taxes. But just that they are exempted when it comes to their gratuity as well. Now, we also picked up from the white paper, capping parliament at 300 members. Let me just break that down for you to also understand. It says that comprising 276 constituencies, MPs and 24 representatives elected through proportional representation for women, persons with disabilities, and the youth. The government said an independent study would determine the structure of the proportional representation system. We also gathered that allowing dual citizens by birth to contest parliamentary elections has also been adopted onto the white paper. Now, without renouncing their foreign citizenship, describing the current restriction as inconsistent with Ghana's engagement with its diaspora. And also, we know yesterday it was captured, introducing a fixed tenure for the Chief Justice, who will serve a single non-renewable term of 10 years or until reaching the mandatory retirement age. What does this really mean? My guest definitely will explain to us. There is also another conversation. You recall Togbi Apede, the 14th, also spoke heavily on this a few days ago. Issues about the number of judges that we appoint or justices we appoint to the Supreme Court. Now, the committee has brought this out into the white paper. It says capping the Supreme Court at 19 justices, including the Chief Justice, instead of the current open-ended arrangement. Now, let me bring one final one before I introduce my guest. It also says that establishing a political parties regulatory commission through legislation to assume responsibility for registering and regulating parties, replacing the Electoral Commission's current role. Then one that sparked controversy yesterday is the one that talks about electing all metropolitan, municipal, and district chief executives. Now, unlike the committee's proposal for a phased approach based on district fiscal capacity, the government opted for nationwide elections. Under the proposal, the president will nominate 5 candidates, 2 of whom must be women, following a vetting process. 3 candidates, including at least 1 woman, will contest the election. So proponents believe that, look, this will rather give more room for women to participate in some of these elections as well. There is also the creation of an independent public emolument commission, which will determine the salaries, allowances, and benefits of Article 71 office holders, which includes the president, members of parliament, and other constitutional office holders, replacing the current system that we have, under which a committee appointed by the president determines such emolument. So that has also been reviewed and changed. But let me bring in my guest quickly before we delve into the other issues as well. Dr. Jonathan Asante Ochre is the executive director of the African Institute of Strategic Studies, and he is also a senior lecturer at UCC. He is a political analyst. He is joined us via Zoom. Professor Enoch Opoku Enchi is a governance and leadership expert. Hopefully also joins us pretty shortly. But let me start off with Dr. Asante. Doc, good morning.
Good morning, Andy. Good morning, Randy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I think I lost you earlier, but if you can try it one more time. Doc, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, my brother.
For your time this morning, let me first of all pick your initial reactions after going through that report and also monitoring from the screens what the Attorney General stated as far as the CRC's report is concerned. What will be your initial reactions to it?
Well, generally, proposing about 206 amendments to the current constitution would have happened through a group of individuals having done a very tedious job. But for me, that in itself is a little too high for a particular constitution that has survived over 32 years of our democracy. It's a little too high. No wonder some propositions have received, clamorous acceptance. Others have also received some kind of backlash. So when we go into the individual propositions, then you can hear my views on that.
I mean, it's quite voluminous. Is that not what Ghanaians have been requesting for? That some believe that the 1992 Constitution has actually outlived its purpose. Thus, a proper change ought to happen. We'll get into the details anyway, but just a preliminary comment on that. So having over 200, amendment or reviews shouldn't be too much, Doc.
It is. It is. A constitution is not a perfect document. It is supposed to be a living organism. If you look at the Constitution of Britain, for example, it's not as voluminous as a tiny country such as ours. So sometimes the spirit of the interpretation where we often miss because of the polarization of our country, the strict dichotomy between the two main political parties, have engendered some of these, criticism. Other than that, most often than not, the spirit of the letter is more important than just the letter itself. Because even when an interpretation comes, you have to appreciate something of that sort. Like, for example, look at the situation where, you look at how by-elections come about. And that generally, it is believed, and it has been the case, that if somebody is in parliament on a ticket of a political party and decides to go independent, you forfeit your seat. Suddenly, the Supreme Court is invited into this political arena or a political question, and it becomes a problem. We are creating problems. We are bringing the Supreme Court into an arena where there is that sharp division, like what just transpired with respect to, the constitutionality or otherwise of the delegate system. Some of these political questions tend to create problems for our constitution. And then every now and then we are getting new laws, new interpretations that do not in any way augur well for our political practices. And so, I mean that to have a constitution that has survived over 30-something years, as imperfect as it may be, proposing over 206 amendment or review, I think is quite high. And that is why it has sparked certain controversies. So if you want me to go into some of the issues that I have on mind, the issue of the extension of presidential term, my institute is opposed to it. And we've already written an article, I think in the early month of last, I think the middle part, or getting to the close of last year. Yes, our position paper is out there already. Because, you see, we are thinking that, or some are thinking that, well, 4 years is too small. What is the significant difference between 4 years and 5 years? People are bothered about people campaigning even when, time is not due, or people do not even know the exact time people should be campaigning. In actual fact, a government that is well focused is not disturbed. If people are campaigning, it is because they want, in actual fact, you need to do the right thing by the people, and you are going to retain your seat or the government itself. And you see, the proponent of this are thinking that you're always going to get a good president like President Mahama. Why are you thinking like that? Because tomorrow we may have a bad president. And if you have a bad president and that person is to go for 10 years, one and second 10, you can imagine the frustration that the ordinary Ghanaian will be going through. And that in itself is a destabilizing, mechanism as far as the democracy is concerned. That is why some of us have been opposed to that. Now, that apart, when you look at the issue of this dual citizenship thing. You see, I hope they are not trying to create a class system. Some of these upper echelons of our society have their children abroad who are already citizens of those countries, so to speak. And so, as if they are creating an enabling environment for some of these people to occupy positions of that nature, that people who have stayed in Ghana, worked through, have not had such an opportunity. How can you convince me that an electoral commissioner whose position is both a stabilizer and a destabilizer should have the opportunity to be a dual citizen? Then where lies the commitment? Where would his or her allegiance be? A speaker that is close to the source of power of this country, taking important decisions that could affect this country to have opportunity to be a dual citizen, then what is the sacrifice? What is your commitment to the agenda of Ghana? Yes, you might have had experience abroad, for which reason it is not your fault that you were born there, but you still trace your origin to this place. That is a little sacrifice you must have for this country. And so I disagree that people being, what's it called, MPs, commissioners of the Electoral Commission, Chief Justice, Speaker, these are sensitive positions, Randy. These are sensitive positions that I think we must not extend this idea of dual citizenship. And I am opposed, to that as well. This idea of the reduction of the qualification. Now, the point is that I am of this because it is neither here nor there. It doesn't bring anything. Let's look at our educational, how you climb the cursus honorum, the course of honor, as the Latins would say. 12 years primary education. At age 15, you would have done JHS. 18, you are done with senior high school. 22, you would have been done with your university education. Then 1 year national service, making it 23. 7 years apart. What life would you have led that you think will qualify you to become president within this country? 7 years. What kind of lifestyle would you have led? What life worthy of emulation? What competencies would you have in the area of governance, in the area of economy, in the area of security, in the area of policy formulation, policy narrative, including 35? How many Ghanaians would have reached that period of life that, could qualify that person to become president? Even that age 40, how many of us don't have such competencies? It is not every individual that can become president. Yes, we are building the youth. We have a youthful population. Yes, I think that our over-fixation on presidency is something that we must eschew. It is neither the age that is necessary. We need people who would have imbibed in them Ghanaian value system, our cultural value system, would have had the opportunity to, probe issues of policy, issues of security, would have been sensitive to the issues of the ordinary Ghanaian, and so on and so forth, would have accomplished or would have lived a life of accomplishment in the area or the expertise that you would have chosen along the line. And so I think that some of these things, some of these propositions shouldn't have come within the 206 amendment that they have proposed.
I'll take you back to the very first one that you mentioned, the argument surrounding the extension of the terms from 4 years to 5. The argument that people raise is that it actually gives ample time to the new government to be fully formed, and also gives them the time to fully roll out the plans they have captured in their various manifestos, because 4 years might be too minute. Don't you agree with this argument as well?
That is why you have the opportunity to be re-elected. So that would have meant you are going to go for 8 solid years. So when you have the opportunity to continue, and remember, when you get the opportunity to continue, it will have meant that you would have done well in the eyes of the ordinary Ghanaian. and they will have given you a mandate. So in the end, you would have served for 8 years. What is it that if you wanted to do, you wouldn't have been able to do within the 8 years? The other aspect of your question, and my response is this. If a party is coming into government, having a particular presidential candidate leading the party, if the president and the team do not know the individuals within their fold that could be appointed for positions of minister, deputy ministers, CEOs, and other important portfolios, then you have no business taking over as government.
Let's move to the other key highlight that we have also pegged down. The conversation surrounding reducing the minimum age to contest the presidency from 40 to 35. Some say at 35, not everybody will have that experience of life to lead a whole nation like Ghana with over 30 million population. Do you agree with that argument also?
I think that is what I already spoke about. I think that it is much ado about nothing, because you wouldn't have lived an accomplished life. We are not looking at people who might have used dubious means to go and make money, and then they'll be able to run the politics of the day and then get themselves elected. That is not what we are looking at. Genuinely, if you are living in this country and living a genuine life, at age 35, you wouldn't have accomplished much. Even your area of expertise, you wouldn't have accomplished that much. You wouldn't have reached the apogee of your career, for which reason we should consider you for presidency. There could be some exceptions here and there, but the exception is always not the law or the norm. It is the regular that we are looking at, not the exception. So I disagree with the committee. I disagree with the government, age 35 proposition, because I feel it is not needed. It's not necessary. Because, Randy, it is not even majority who will be 40 years and above wouldn't have been even be in a position to become president. So we are saying, AISS is saying that should not be a border of the CRC. It shouldn't have been a border. But the government felt that they wanted to meet them halfway. And that is why they also proposed 35.
Say that at least we've seen what Emmanuel Macron of France has done. I mean, he's been a very young person who has been in the helm of affairs all this while as well. So that's actually an example to set for Ghana as well. Now, if you look at even some of the appointees under the current administration, very young guys and ladies who are in office and doing so well. So giving the youth the opportunity could rewrite the stories of Ghana. Is that not something we can actually look at?
You see, when somebody is doing well in an area that he's been appointed to, it does not in any way mean that that person can do well when it comes to the presidency. We are looking at power. It is often said, and there's a poet by name Philemon, if you really want to know the character of a man, give him power. Give him power. And you see, we've seen presidents that have done very badly in this system before. Others are equally doing very well. But the presidency is a different ball game altogether. And that is why we equally get it wrong. Using Macron as an example, what is the education system? That is why I outlined our education system as the pre-qualification to get into the high office of a president. What kind of life of accomplishments would that person have lived for that person to qualify or to be or to have the wherewithal to occupy the position of a president?
I'll come back. There is also a mention of the tax exemptions for the president that has also been reviewed. I'll come back to you on that, but let me bring in Professor Enoch Opoku Entry as well. Let me pick his initial reactions first. Prof, good morning. I know it's very early at your side, but thank you for joining us this morning.
Definitely for God and country.
And then we can look at the key highlights as Dr. Jonathan also touched on some of them. For you, What makes it for you in the presentation made by the Attorney General yesterday?
Let me say greetings to your viewers everywhere in the world, and a couple of things that I highlighted. First, I think that we are getting serious as a nation for the first time in reviewing our constitution. Everywhere in the world, they talk about amendment, the First Amendment, Second Amendment, 14th Amendment. The reason why it is important is that amendments meet the exigencies of the time at a moment. So if you look at 33 years old document, which is our constitution, of course, a lot of them need amendments. Some are entrenched, some we can amend them easily, and I will talk into the details. But I think that overall, the Constitutional Review Committee have done a great job by categorizing or scoping this their proposal into 9 different composition, or what I call the constructs. They talked about effective presidency, which was their number 1 construct or chapter of the division. Then they talked about the people-centered democracy, which has eluded Ghana for a long time because power always belongs to we the people in any democratic dispensation. They talked about harnessing our collective resources and finances and investment for sustainable development. We need to do that. They talked about restoring trust in the institutions of accountability. We know what is happening in the judicial system. We need to build that trust because it is eroding fast. Then they talked about a well-governed, capable, effective public service. We know our public service is terrible and we need to fix it. They talk about leaving no one behind. That is what has shown in the proposition that we need women, children, and people of disability in our parliament because for far too long they've been ignored. They talked about all development is local. We need to use global knowledge to solve local problems, what I call the local issue. Then they talked about securing and safeguarding our democracy, peace, freedom, and stability. Our democracy is still young, and anytime there's an election, there is massive cost and tension in our country. We need to fix that, and then a living constitution. So I think in the end, all the 9 chapters of these proposals is going to give us a living constitution that will meet the need of our time.
Dr. Jonathan Asante, he seemed to disagree a little bit with some of the points that were captured, or some of the reviews that were captured. I don't know what you think about that. He mentioned that the extension of the presidential term from 4 years to 5 years won't significantly yield any proper result, because 5 and 4 will still be the same. And he argues that, I mean, you need to form your government, you need to be prepared even before you get into government. Don't you agree? What's your take on that?
Well, academically, he's an intellectual, so it's easy to have a discussion with him. We can always agree to disagree agreeably on many issues of common interest and importance. 4 years is different from 5 years. If you get 4 out of 10, it's different from getting 5 out of 10. Because that 1 point, you work so hard to get it. Now, let me go to the nitty-gritties. Any governance that you see, the 4 years that we have, because some countries are using a 5-year model, and it works better because for the first year is where you are putting your government in place, and anything that you bump on a lot of challenges from your first year, and that is why people like Gabi Ochredakon said that President Mahama is the luckiest president, the most prepared, because he's been there before, and most people have not been in office before and coming back to contest for elections. So when you win for the first time, now you have power, you have influence. Everybody is trying to call you, and a whole lot of, So it takes a whole year for you to adjust. In fact, research has shown that even any institution that you find yourself as a boss, it takes at least 2 years, to know everything about that organization, let alone a whole country. So if the first year you use to prepare a lot of things, setting up your government, making sure institutions are working, getting CEOs and board chairs, and there's a lot. The president alone have 1,000 positions to fill. Then the last year is also for campaigning. So you have basically 2 years to work, and that is not enough. Then if you look at 5 years or 4 years, so 5 years, for 20 years, you have had just 4 elections. But 4 years for 20 years, you've had 5 elections. So every 20 years, we are saving one election. That is money saved and tension in the country saved. So I think, it's a good idea. Nobody likes change. Change is difficult. When I'm teaching change, change management, I always say that the only person who need a change is a wet baby. It's only babies when they are wet, they start crying because they need a change. But adults, we don't like change. But I think that because of our time and the nature of the way tension is, even at the grassroots and at the national level and all those, the money in the process. We can save a lot of money every 20 years by saving one election in this proposal.
For me, don't you also think that, look, before you even become that president, throughout your campaign stage and all of that, you should be able to know the people who can fit into the various positions or the appointment probably you might give. Why must it even take more than 2 or 3 months to fully form a government before work begins? That will eat into the time. Don't you agree?
Yes, but it is easier said than done that this person is going to be my Minister of Finance, this person is going to be my Minister of Agriculture, this person. It doesn't work like that in politics. In fact, politics in itself is the moment. Moment can bring somebody. You might be with the government for, position for 8 years, but a moment will bring somebody who can outperform you in many aspects. And you will see with these new proposals that we are allowing those who dual citizens coming into, you will see competency that will be country. Our association president is in Ohio, and I can tell you the competency of most Ghanaians in big institutions from NASA to other places. They have the skill set, they have the talents that they can come, and then together we can work and change our world to be more effective, more persuasive, and then more productive.
Turn one more time, Doc. The conversation on the removing of taxes or tax exemptions for sitting presidents, and then also the exemptions that have been given that has to do with their retirement gratuity. What's the difference, and how significant will this even contribute to the coffers of the country?
Well, it is not about. It's not solely about the significance of that contribution. It is about openness and transparency with respect to, what the president earns, and then asking people to pay taxes and you not paying. That in itself is a disincentive to others who are paying taxes. So that for me is in order. With respect to the gratuity or retirement package, well, it's because it is generally going to be that independent emolument institution that they will form. They are going to take care of that. So maybe that one is going to be either a lump sum payment and so on and so forth. So that may not be a taxable kind of benefit. And so there is no need to put that in the public domain. But with respect to the salary, I think that is in order. It will encourage some kind of transparency, and then the ordinary citizen will equally be committed that it is not only us who are paying taxes. The president, the vice president, they are equally paying taxes. What my senior brother said about those doing so well, probably in the US, they are citizens of the United States and other things. I am of the view that if you want to occupy a sensitive position, nobody is preventing you from holding positions or coming to do well in the country, whichever way or any portfolio that you find yourself. I don't think anybody is opposed to that. But sensitive positions, if you cannot sacrifice that particular tag of yours in order to occupy those positions, like as I said, electoral commissioner, a stabilizer and a destabilizer. If he's holding a dual citizenship, for me, it is a very sensitive position. And that's the more reason I'm opposed to that. It is not as though I'm opposed to people holding, dual citizenship. I don't think I'm opposed to that. But if you really want to serve your country, and you want to be committed and dedicated to your country of origin, that little sacrifice is important.
That should be a fair call. And Prof, I mean, again, we have seen how one way or the other inconsistent the EC has been with issuing of results here and there. So the danger here is that if that chance is given to such a person, don't you think this country will be turned into some turmoil, Prof?
There's no danger. I don't know why you create fear where there's none. America has, you're a citizen of Ghana, and then you come and get through permanent residency, green card, and then you eventually become a citizen. You can rise up to the vice president level. So what is so special about Ghana that we can allow somebody to be, because this one removed the presidency and the vice president. What is so special about the electoral commission that somebody with dual citizen cannot do it? What's so special about the speaker what is so sensitive about that? It's an election that you go through a process, everybody be in the line, there's no fighting, there's no insult, you go and vote, and the person declares the winner. What is so special about that? So we have gatekeepers in politics, we have foreigners. I was saying this in one of the TV stations this morning before I jump on this, that those abroad love Ghana more than those in Ghana, if you don't know. If you look at investment, money coming from those outside to Ghana, and where they are sitting, somebody is in New York, sleeps in one bedroom with a wife and 4 children, but has 5-10 bedrooms in Ghana. All their investment in their lives, they squeeze themselves here thinking about home in Ghana one day. You know that the Ghanaian churches, the associational life, everything is about Ghana, the food that they eat, everything. Independence anniversary, how they celebrate it, everything's about Ghana. They love the country more than those in the country, I'm telling you. Because I've lived in both worlds. So they ask that, sensitive position. There's nothing sensitive about coming to help your country. There's nothing sensitive about that. And I agree. The former, the former Prime Minister of UK had a permanent residency in US. But he was the Prime Minister in UK. It didn't change anything. It is the love for the country, of your birth that is important, and coming home to help.
Those democracies are old. These are old. Yes. Democracies. They have been practicing that for so long. I mean, others argue that our democracy is still very young, a little over 30 years. We might not necessarily get to that stage yet as the US, the UKs are doing. Prof.
If it's going to take you 100, 200 years and somebody bring it to you today, have they hurt you or they have helped you? You want our democracy to be 200, 300 years, that is the good practice. And my friend is an academic. Best practices are picked from anywhere, in research, in learning and everywhere. So if countries are doing this and it's the best practices, they see the good in other immigrants and people from other countries, that you can rise to the vice president. It is only president that you cannot be. And we are thinking about electoral commission of an Africa, a developing country, that we can allow somebody with another citizenship to do that. But when they bring money, and the money that these Ghanaians, we have almost 5 million Ghanaians outside. Do you know the money they bring home? Without them, our economy will collapse. Sometimes a whole year, the money those abroad bring, the remittances, according to our former president Kufuor, Nana Addo, and President John Dramani Mahama, is more than even cocoa. You think they don't love the country? So yeah, when somebody makes those arguments, you need to, and I understand, when you live in a system, you have your blank side. There are many things you are not privy to because you've not experienced it. And if I tell you about a lot of systems, like technical education, a lot of people teaching in technical colleges and universities who have great ideas to come, engineering and other things that they can use to change our world. We should open that gate. We shouldn't have gatekeepers in politics, in education, in our health systems, in our environmental cleanliness. All these areas, we should open that door, and you will see people
You and I think that we have Madam Mary Ada also joining us this morning. Good morning, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, and hope you are doing well. Good morning to your viewers as well.
Shared their initial reactions and they touched on some of the key highlights that we have enumerated. For you and from where you see it, what will be your initial take on the CRC's report that was given out yesterday by the Attorney General? Okay, all right. So I think that we have some little challenge with Madam Mary Ada. Definitely, we'll re-establish contact with her and bring her back to also share her thought on that for us. But let me go to Dr. Jonathan. Doc, the issue on electing all metropolitan, municipal, and district chief executives is back and has been adopted. I mean, is that really power to the people at the grassroots, or again, we're going to politicize that particular space also, as far as local governance is concerned? Doc?
Well, if you look at the methodology that has been adopted, obviously the partisanship will still be there. But it is just that the three that will have to be contesting to get themselves elected would have been nominated by the president. And so still the partisanship will be there. I think that they have considered a lot of things about security, about governance, about certain structures that if they are not careful, they open the Pandora box, it will create problems, over there. But before I continue, Randy, are you aware of this amphetamine drug bust in Australia? You heard that, right? And are you there? No.
Hello, Doc. I'm listening.
Hello?
I'm with you.
So I was asking, you are aware of the drug bust in Australia, right? In the investigation, there is an errand boy that has been arrested. But my information indicates that the person who was the kingpin was a Ghanaian British citizen. So as of now, being a British citizen and a Ghanaian is left out of jurisdiction. So if it is not about looking at only the good sides, you must equally be worried about scandals if they erupt. How do you deal with that? There must be a good reason for somebody to suggest that not to the presidency. Why? Why should you not include the president or the presidency? Why that exception? And I'm also arguing that if you really think that you really are committed to your country, it doesn't have to be that you'll be holding another commitment to another country. That is my position. With respect to the election of MMDCs, I think the proposition is halfway through solving the problem, so that at the end of the day, probably it will not be a matter of people paying these assembly members and all those things, bribing their way through in order to get themselves, elected. Maybe with time we may see the full implementation of this particular policy. The devil, they say, is always in the detail. It is only when we get this implementation committee set up and then they start implementing some of these things, that is when we may get the nitty-gritty. So that is all I have to say about that particular issue.
So, a comment on this one before I bring in Madam Mary to also share her thoughts on this. Prof, the issue of electing metropolitan, municipal, and district chief executives, power to the people at the grassroots, or we're seeing some partisanship going to be played out there?
A quick one on what Doc said. I like intellectual arguments, and because we all learn from the process. America extradited a convicted person, sentenced, brought the person back home, and we have released the person. So a good system should be able to get any person anywhere they are, be extradited to be charged once we have this charge system. And I'm glad that there was a construct provided for that kind of provision of this amendment. If DCEs are called in local parlance aban krachi, dedicated krachi, or gentleman of any constituency. So this morning I saw Manasseh Zuri posting that Akufo-Addo's proposal is better than this one. And then I also read some of the comments. Some people were saying that I catch you, that means most people are being arrested now in MPP, and that is going to make it difficult for especially the entrenched part of the Constitution to pass, because we need that 40% and 75% voter turnout for the entrenched position of the Constitution to pass based on this amendment. So we need the opposition to do that. I think all of that should be carried on, but the positionality of the government on this is that 5 individuals will be nominated, and then 3 will be selected, including a woman, and then they will be elected. We are going to have that kind of political situations. But I think that Nanadu proposed that political parties can have, CPP can have their candidate, NDC, and then the people will vote. This one is different, that the government is going to nominate 5 and select 3 out of the 5. And another one will be a female, and then the people will vote in that process. I think half a loaf is always better than none. That is what amendments are about. We are making some progress and making some changes better than the existing over 33 years of our Constitution, most of which are outdated. And most people are not aware. The major problems we are having in our dispensation, removing of the Chief Justice and the problems, and always upon drama, is that our Constitution is outdated. It's just like any organization that our policies and procedures are using to work and is outdated. You will always have conflicts. So it is okay now that we are making changes in our Constitution, that we need better MCEs and DCEs in our constituencies. If we look at the park, going there and simple English, they can't. They can't even talk about things that they've been able to do. And that's terrible, because we have a lot of educated people who are there in these constituencies that, given the opportunity, can serve better than these people based on just political party lines. And that's what we should be cautious about.
I go to Doc. You spoke about the Chief of Staff, Chief Justice, and also the Supreme Court. That argument popped up some time back, where critics argue that we have too many justices being appointed to the Supreme Court, which will make the Supreme Court justices look more. And he had a particular tag name that came up some years ago. Doc, do you think capping it to 19 justices, including the Chief Justice, instead of the current open-ended arrangement, this would rather inure to the benefit of Ghana?
I'm indifferent when it comes to this particular issue, because it is not about 15 or 19. How much is too much and how much is too little? And what are the issues at the Supreme Court that you may need that 19 a number, or you may need 15 as proposed by the CRC? My concern is the fact that if you put a seal at 15 or 19, whichever way you look at it, it has its own pros and cons. At 19, the state is going to expend a lot of money. At 15, the state will spend less money. But if you cap it at 15, when people have reached the period where they are supposed to be promoted to the Supreme Court, what happens? Are we going to stifle their progression because the cap is 15? How long are these people going to live before they get to age 70, before they bow out of the Supreme Court? So whichever way you look at it, you are going to stifle the progression of others. It is just that at any point in time, whoever is the president must use a discretionary power that will be predisposed to serving the people from an egalitarian perspective, not from a political parochial interest. So that is the million-dollar question I've been asking. myself, and I've asked already in the public space, what happens to those who would have reached the period where they are supposed to be promoted? Is it going to be their undoing that they will not be promoted because there is a cap? So whichever way you look at it, it has its own pros and cons, some advantages and disadvantages. That's my position on that.
Grateful. I'll come back so we wrap up pretty shortly, but Madam Mary is back. Sorry, we lost you earlier. You were making a point. Your reactions to all that we saw yesterday from the Attorney General. Let me pick your thoughts quickly.
Thank you so much. Good morning to you and your viewers, and also to the panelists in studio. I would want to say that it's a mixed bag of issues that came out. I would also want to commend government and the Attorney General for spearheading the process to where we are now. Indeed, at the beginning, we were even thinking government was picking up all the issues because at the presentation of the report, the president indicated they had he had accepted all the recommendations, and he would hand it over to his legal people to look at it, and a committee would have been set up. So we actually believe this is come late but very good. And we also believe that in the various recommendations, even though some have not been taken, we still believe that at least half a loaf is better than none when it comes to this space, because we've had a lot of time to reflect on what we want as a people. But as to what if that is exactly what we wanted, particularly in the governance and anti-corruption space, it's a whole big story we need to talk about. But commendably, we need to commend government for taking the bold step to initiate this. And I can say, for example, that decoupling the Attorney General from the Ministry of Justice is one of such. But then the nitty-gritties of the details of it is another issue. Perhaps when we have the opportunity to read the full position paper, we can then be talking about. Again, we recommended the total setup for an anti-corruption institution, which has not materialized. They said in principle, and then we see that they are setting up another office, not by constitution. So you see, the issue of setting up the office to be independent, the Attorney General mentioned yesterday that this office is going to be independent of executive authority. And yet, why don't we then make that office a constitutional creature, but rather a creature of legislation? That's the challenge we have had. And looking around across the globe, we have seen some of these limitations. And perhaps when we presented our memos to the committee, and not just this one, but in previous instances, because of some of these challenges of independence and how they limit the powers of the independent prosecutor who is focused on corruption, we made some of those recommendations in good faith. But then let's have it sometime. Let's interrogate the recommendations in full, and also let's look at what government is presenting. I believe most of them, they even went over and above to ensure that we are having something better. In one of my disappointments, the fact that government is still justifying a hybrid system is difficult to understand. Why are we not decoupling the legislature from the executive? What at all do we want to sell out? Where is it done? And why do we want to continue to? It's one of my disappointments. I think on the issue of local governance, perhaps I've heard the other panelists speak to it extensively. I would have preferred something else, but this is where we are. But then let's finish reading through. It's a whole bulky document we are going through, and we will issue our positions on some of these going forward.
Again, stay with me. The part that says establishing a public ethics commission with powers to investigate and prosecute corruption and conflicts of interest involving public officials and their private sector collaborators through the Conduct of Public Officers Bill. What's your take on that also?
I think the Conduct of Public Officers Bill, it's what has taken Chapter 24 of our Constitution and put it into the legislation. Unfortunately, I believe that we should go above that discussion. So there's a confusion. The confusion is SHRAJ in the Constitution is supposed to be the body responsible for ethics and other conduct of public officers when it comes to those issues. Yes. Then we have the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Are we saying that that office is being disbanded? It's not too clear. And then we're saying this ethics office is going to be empowered by the legislation, and we don't see, perhaps maybe in the revisions in Parliament, we can then review some of those and get that done. But essentially, that is not what we envisage. We were envisaging an office of ethics and anti-corruption that gives power, exclusive power, to that office to prosecute the issues of corruption and ethics when it comes to Ghanaian cases. Unfortunately, we didn't get that. We believe that. So when we setting up this office, are we putting the OSP into that office, or are we restructuring the OSP to look like that office? And if that is the case, we are already in the discussion where we just came back from the Supreme Court, which talks about the issues around Article 88.4 not being under any contention whatsoever. And so if the Attorney General, who is going to be separated, will still have that exclusive power, then it means we have a problem. How independent would that independence be? Because the Supreme Court has indicated clearly that whatever the case be, that power under the Constitution does not change whatsoever. And so it's difficult for me to understand why we are going to use a legislation to counter the problems we have been talking about in the past, and not ensuring that we put this in the Constitution to curtail all the challenges we have envisioned in the past.
True, and I'll pose that same question to the two gentlemen on. Prof, I'll come to you on this. Does it feel like it's a duplication of what we already have? Yes, Madam Mary mentioned the Office of the Special Prosecutor and all of that. Establishing a public ethics commission, what different thing would they do from what we already have?
There is nothing that gets up to ethics. Ethics is so important, the right thing at the right time, for the right reason, so that we can achieve the right results. So if they are all fighting corruption, I don't see anything wrong with that. I was worried about the process of the special prosecutor being taken away. So if we are having an institution to make sure that people are taught in doing the right, the do's and the don'ts for public office, I don't have any problem. Where I have problem is the government rejecting the proposal to move the Chief Justice as a member of the Court of Appeal over the empanelment. I thought that for the Appeal Court to have that kind of independence, the proposal from the Constitution Committee was that the Chief did not be part of a member of the High Court and the Appeal Court, but that the government has said that. What I saw from this, and the government saying, is not a white paper, but a report. Their position is that they talk every item whether they agree, and then stated whether they disagree or agree, and they also made their recommendation. I think that the outcome is a great thing of the judiciary, the Supreme Court. Already they are proposing that the Chief Justice years, not renewable. So straight 10 years. That means that if presidency is 10 years, which is 5 years each, they will end with the Chief Justice, and the Chief Justice goes to them. If another government comes after 5 years, they have to work with the Chief Justice. It's good for continuity of justice and independence of the judiciary. I also believe that cabinet, my brother talked about those who are qualified to be at that level. You see, the challenge here is that America, or British have the parliamentary system, America have the presidential system. So we borrowed our constitution from the presidential system. America has over 350 million people, and they have capped the Supreme Court numbers to only 9. We have just 35 million, which is 1/10 of it. And we already have over 10 Supreme Court judges. What are we doing that for? Because Nana Addo had 14, and President Mahama appointed more. So when we cap 18, even though I think it's higher side, because America is having 9, those we picked our constitution from have only 9 of Supreme Court judges. Most of the cases 5, and the highest has been 7 in that amount. So what do we need the 19 for? See, so when we are cutting costs, we should cut from all angles of the arms of government, because we don't have that kind of money to, bungalows and cars and security and for all that. We need money for agriculture, money for cleaning our communities. We need money for every citizen to be local as they categorize it to be. The other thing that I think I agree with Mary was the ministers coming from Parliament. The government said that the president should have the discretionary power to select where he or she wants their cabinet ministers to come from. I agree. But they also agree with the Constitutional Review Committee that the number or the word used, that majority of ministers should be amended, so that it will not be majority, but it can be some or all or none. And I think that is a very gray area, because if it is amended that way, then the president can appoint all based on their discretionary power from Parliament, or none from Parliament, or some from Parliament and then some from outside. But separation of powers and checks and balances means that the executive should be different from the judiciary, the parliamentary. In that way, we will check of each arm of government. But as it is now, and the government positionality, I think we're going to have some challenges there until finally we see each arm of government. But I think that half a loaf is always better than none. And I recommend again this government for taking this steps. And I also believe that the dreams of Professor Mills have come alive because he hoped for before he passed away.
With you also, the establishment of a public ethics commission, how different will it be? Now, you recall the challenges the OSP even had some time back, arguing that, yes, he has been cajoled, he has been prevented from rolling out some of the things he ought to do or he wants to do. Recently, we saw the ruling against them as well. Is this not a duplication? How significant would this office even go a long way to help fight graft? Doc.
Pardon me. I was lost a bit. Yeah. Can you come again?
Dr. Sante, can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's your question?
How different will this new office or the establishing of a public ethics commission be from the already existing ones, for instance, the Office of the Special Prosecutor? Are we not seeing a duplication?
You see, we want to, Prof rightly pointed out a particular scenario. We want to cut down costs, and yet we are creating more, bureaucracies. What for? In all of this, how well have we been able to fight corruption in this country? It is all about the implementational problems and challenges and difficulties that have prevented us from, fully to fight, that kind of corruption. But fortunately, we seem to have a particular government that is committed to things of that nature. That is good. But I think there are too many, institutions that are being set up here and there, that in the end, nobody knows where whose powers end and where it begins. it creates problems for all of us. You see the point? And so this issue of, for example, picking the 2/3, from Parliament, and that others are advocating for a complete dichotomy between the executive and then the legislature. I don't think in our case it will definitely work. The idea of picking the 2/3 of our ministers from Parliament is to save cost, because this parliamentarian will not take salary as a parliamentarian, as a minister. He will only be taking the higher one, and that is the minister. So it saves cost. But it also prevents a situation where you do not have people who are out there who have serious expertise in areas that we may need development. But it also tells you that those who have expended money, resources, time to get the party elected, you are thinking that they should not benefit from their sweat. It is impractical. But people are looking at the independence tightly, that the legislature shouldn't have anything to do with the executive. Whichever way you look at it, whether they become ministers or they don't, there's definitely going to be a cooperation between the legislature and the executive. Because most often than not, the executive is the one holding the purse. The legislature is the one passing the bills. There's definitely going to be coordination. That complete dichotomy, I don't think is going to work for our system. There is the need for that cooperation, for smooth, for us to be able to deal with issues from a perspective that will best situate, as far as our moral, our values, our cultural, and all those things are concerned. Sometimes we don't have to think as though we are a complete different individuals or human beings from others. You see, for now, this is what, for me, has benefited the country. We may not have gotten to where we want to get to for now. But the suggestion that 2/3 should be amended, I think that one I agree. That 2/3 majority, that compulsory kind of thing, I agree. But that complete dichotomy, I don't think it will work. It is not practical, because those who have expended their money to get themselves elected, whichever way you look at it, they must equally benefit from expending their resources, and they must be part of the governance process. So that is my position on that. With respect to this Public Ethics Commission, you have the OSP, the mandate of this, you have Yoko, you have Shraj, and all those things. I don't know. I'm quite indifferent, and at the same time, not enthused by creating other layers. Because if you, for example, separate the Attorney General from the Minister of Justice, you are going to have the Minister of Justice, and you're still going to have an OSP, what's the difference? What is the difference? And you are going to have another Public Ethics Commission that the interface, the idea is noble. But I don't think that there are other institutions that are not doing similar things. So I think that it is just one of the bureaucratic office we intend to create that will also come at a cost to us. I have another.
Stay with me. For a layman out there, I don't know how you understand this, but the position that capping Parliament at 300 members, comprising 276 constituency MPs and 24 representatives elected through proportional representation for women, persons with disabilities, and the youth. Now, we are told that government is, will have an independent study to determine the structure of the proportional representation system. Doc, how do you understand this, and to what extent will this even help?
My position is that 24, why can't we have it in the 276? Why are we creating another layer of cost? Yes, it is proper that you have representation for women, you have representation for people who are, people with disabilities, and that is good. It's a noble idea. But why can't it be fitted in the 276 that we have to create another, cost for the nation?
What do you also think about this? Is it much ado about nothing? Is it something that will really change the narrative in the coming days? 300 members, which will comprise 276 constituency MPs, 24 representatives, elected through proportional representation. Prof, your take on that?
It's a new thing. So I have not seen that model in any other democratic dispensation. So it's a new thing. And they are thinking about how we can represent the individuals, minority who have been marginalized for a long time. If you look at our East African countries, they are doing well with female representation, so that's a good thing. We've not been able to do that in our dispensation. But I also think that maybe in the frame of the government thinking, they were having thoughts about the 24 because it's women, people with disabilities, and then the youth. Two things that I will talk about. First, even America forgot about the disabled. They had the ADA Act, American with Disabilities Act in 1990. So for almost 250 years, it is only from 1990 that they started making provisions for the disability, and they all regret doing it. So now, if you go to parks, you go to bathrooms, anywhere, they have machines for the disabled. So it's good. Maybe there's a trend that the disabled is going to find it difficult to get to parliament, but we have a lot of disabled who are really smart. Let me give you one example. There was a guy called Janjero when I was at the University of Cape Coast. He contested for Atlantic Hall president, a blind guy, and very smart guy. And then when I finished and I was working, we finished university, I was working for the German government. I was working for the German government with community water and sanitation for small town water projects. So I went to Kitikrachi. I went to a store, I was going to buy something. That was 2 years after we finished university. As soon as I asked for the price of the product, the guy called my name. He said, Enoch, what are you doing here? And I was shocked. The guy is a blind guy, but very smart. And he was posted to Kitikrachi. I don't know whether he's still there, but that is where life will end him, using Braille because he's a blind guy to teach. But most of these guys are so smart with their senses that we can use their expertise in parliament. So if government is making a pathway for the disabled or youth, and why the youth? Because Africa as a continent has the most youthful population from 18 to 35 in the whole, and yet we have the oldest leaders from presidency to cabinet ministers on the continent. So if we are giving the youth the chance, I think it's in order. A lady from the Ashanti region, I think, won election in 22 years. One from, I think, Dr. Kwekwatin, daughter also. And I remember Nitu will also won election when he was a very young guy from the north. Apart from that, it's taking a while before young people can get into parliament. So if government is making that provision for them, I don't know how the representative will be. If it's going to be skewed toward political affiliates, or it's going to be how they will share it is going to create a problem because it's a new model I have not seen it being practiced. But we'll see how that one goes. And already we have out of 206 proposals. Out of the 206, 147 is going to be, a right, and then 59 is going to be entrenched to demand 40% voting and 75% turnout and all those things. And we will need opposition to be passed so that all the other entrenched ones can also be passed. That is where I'm calling for collaboration, because for far too long, we're in it. Our constitution is outdated. Most part of it is useless, and it's good that we make this amendment because every country that has survived talks about the First Amendment, Second Amendment, 14th Amendment. Amendments fix the problems of current time. The old situation, imagine a professor using a 33-year-old notes to teach now. What do you think students will learn? Because everything is changing. In Europe, in North America, every semester they are even changing parts of textbooks because everything is changing. You have used one constitution for over 30 years. Now, opportunity to change aspect of it. I think we should all embrace it. We are not going to have 100% what we are looking for, but this is a good, bold step forward. And from there, we can begin to, make further amendments as we move into the future.
And I think that would be your concluding remarks on this topic as well. Go catch some sleep, Prof.
Thank you. God bless you all.
Another time as well. Madam Mary is back. Doc, I'll come to you so you can also wind up. But Madam Mary, this should be some good news for you, especially as a woman, where this capping of parliament at 300, which will give some enough representation to women. How do you take this?
Oh, yes, I believe that's one of the very progressive positions government has taken, and on issues around representation or Jesse, gender and social inclusion, I believe this is very forward looking. Even though we would still have to then work with the political parties to ensure its actualization, I believe is the right way to go. Rwanda in Africa has shown the example. And so it's for us to then look at what has happened in other places, which has gone very well, to also replicate. So we commend government on this. This is very exciting. I wanted to come back to that discussion on the ethics thing. I omitted to mention that the priority of government in the fight against corruption from 2026 to 2030, as per the National Ethics and Anti-Corruption Program, which we call the NICAP, which has just been finished. I am sure I had information yesterday. It actually went to Parliament because it's going to be adopted. Has a huge focus on ethics. Ethics are very important for prevention, and it also builds a culture. And if we want to reshape society, we need ethics. But I still stand on the grounds that we need to be careful the number of institutions we are creating, doing similar things, because we've seen over time that the potential for theft was the potential for a lot not being done, because people are looking at what am I supposed to do, and the rest still remain, even with the few we have. And so we need to come to this discussion as we give our inputs, looking at that again. But just to say that ethics is a core component of government programming and priorities when it comes to fighting corruption within this period. And admittedly so, they would want to have spaces where the discussion is actualized very well. And as Prof said, I totally agree that in these spaces we need to focus on them. But in focusing on them, we should ensure that we don't create challenges. For instance, making them independent through legislation, and not making them truly independent. So by law they are, but by practice there are people drawing strings from behind, which will not make the work go on as we wish. But to finish, as Doug was saying, he says he's indifferent with the creations. I have a problem with we have said this before, we don't need 300 parliamentarians in Ghana. Ghana is a small country. Go to the US, Canada. I was in their legislature, and you realize that we have put in place mechanisms that expand and expand. So it's a good thing that we are capping, just like for the Supreme Court. It's a good thing that we are capping it at 300. I believe that we could have even capped it less, but then or left it where it is now. But as we grow, certainly some of these things would happen. So we take it in good faith, but we pray that going forward, if even discussions go on and we are not supposed to increase, I think it will be better, because the cost is too much. And to say something on what Prof said, that the issues around Parliament being part of the executive, I think that if we are going forward and looking forward, we should be very clear on this, and also then appreciate what is happening in other spaces. It is true that people commit their resources and time to campaign, and so they would be wishing to be part of the process. It is also true that when they are part and when they are picked as ministers, they don't get double pay, so it saves some resources. But is that the whole truth? I believe that there are also challenges with this, because oversights become difficult. Our legislature is not as strong as it should be, because people are not paying attention to the legislative function. And this has been grounded in research and factually proven. If you watch the spaces, today the government has a lot of legislators, but you see it's difficult to even form a quorum, even though they would mention some reasoning. And so for me, I believe that as much as we can, it's not too late. We should be able to come to this discussion looking at how we decouple to strengthen our legislature to ensure that it oversights properly and thoroughly over the executive. Thank you very much.
Mary, so as you all mentioned, the debate will continue. Hopefully next week we'll call back for another in-depth analysis on it. Thank you so much, Madam Mary, for your time this morning. Doc, let me wrap up with you. Your concluding remarks on all of this, Doc.
You see, the call for that total dichotomy between the legislature and executive, it is not a bad idea. But for me, it appears more theoretical than practical, because there's definitely going to be cooperation at that top level. But the other thing too is that if the legislature, you see, people get to parliament having expended a lot of money, so they will want to stay there. If the system is not going to create those kinds of burden for the legislature, that their only thing is just to legislate, where they are not going to be paying people school fees, they are not going to be attending unnecessary funerals, they are not going to giving people scholarships and all manner of things, then it means that the cost of becoming a legislator will not be that high. But because in practicality it has become very high, that is why they will want to rise to the position of a minister. So theoretically and practically, there are two different things. In practice, you will see that they will need that in order to sustain themselves and to ensure that they remain in parliament as well. But finally, I think that this is a very bold decision on the part of government. Whether I disagree with some of the propositions and some of the amendments that have called for, it is a bold decision, but I still have my little doubt to the effect that 206 propositions for review is a little too high for a constitution that has sustained all of us over 30 years. Thank you very much.
As always, we appreciate your time this morning, Doc.
You're welcome, Andy.
There you heard Dr. Jonathan Asante Ochiri. He is a political analyst, a senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast, UCC precisely. And he is also the executive director of the Institute of Strategic Studies, African Institute of Strategic Studies as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Jonathan, for joining us. Also, Madam Mary Awelana Ada, she is the executive director, Ghana Integrity Initiative. She also added her voice to it. And also our very own Professor Enoch Opoku Entry. He is a governance and leadership expert. He also joined us this morning via Zoom all the way from the United States of America. Viewers, here we draw curtains on today's edition. But before I go, I think I got this text from Ephraim. And Ephraim says that every day half a loaf is better than none. Why don't we aim at getting full loaf instead of half every time? Good morning to you. As a citizen, I fully support the idea of constitutional review and possible writing of a new one or amending the old. But I honestly wish this is approached by everyone on a non-party basis. Opposition should criticize as opposition and not NPP. Various stakeholders should approach it from a nationalistic perspective. All right, Ephraim, thank you so much for sending that message. Folks, before we go, tomorrow is the birthday of our very own Karim, and I have this message for him. It's coming from a lovely person, JKO, and the message says that happy birthday to an incredible person. Even though your birthday is officially tomorrow, today I want to celebrate not just the amazing TV host everyone sees, but the remarkable man behind the microphone. You have a heart that genuinely cares for people. You are always willing to show up for others, and your kindness and generosity leave a lasting impact on everyone fortunate enough to know you. Your dedication, humility, and passion for serving others are truly inspiring. As you continue your journey and campaign for the position of the DNCO, may wisdom guide your decisions, favor go before you, and may every good seed you've sown come back to you in abundance. May this new year of your life bring greater success, good health, divine protection, endless joy, and open doors beyond your expectations. May your voice continue to inspire, inform, and make a positive difference wherever it is heard. Happy birthday in advance. I celebrate you today and wish you nothing but God's richest blessings. Have an amazing birthday tomorrow, and may this year, may this be your best year yet. With much love, JKO. And this is coming from a special soul, Mrs. Thank you. I mean, the birthday party will come on, right? I'm the MC of the show. Anyway, Karim, wherever you are, happy birthday to you in advance. From the team here, we celebrate you. You're an amazing young man, and most definitely, we all love you, right? But to book Accra, what I say, the tours have no come, that confirm no come, the smoke no come. Hopefully, we get to see how it pans out in the coming days as well. But happy birthday to you in advance, my brother Karim, as well. But here we end the show. But thank you so much for watching, and thanks to the entire crew for helping put this one together. My name is Randy Ahadzi. Please, it's a weekend, and as I always tell you, be very careful as you step out. Stay safe, stay out of trouble. Let's meet again next week. It's a wrap for now. Bye-bye.